Thanks for listening to this Q1043 podcast.
Looking for your next job? Check out NJ.com and let the local team work for you. Because we're Jersey insiders, we know the best jobs, the best companies, and the right opportunities, including the one that's right for you. NJ.com, everything Jersey.
This is Out of the Box. 60 minutes of new music. Out of the Box. Tracks from unsigned bands. Out of the Box. Artist spotlights. This is Out of the Box. With your host, Jonathan Clarke, on Q1043.
Joined live on the phone with lead guitar player and founder, or co-founder, I guess, of The Killers, David Keuning. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, my pleasure. You must be excited. The new album right now, at the top of the charts, one of the best-selling albums in America right now.
Yeah, we're happy about it, I guess, and we're hoping that it does good for more than just a month. A lot of albums drop out of the top 10, and that's it. But,
We'll talk about the title, because Sam's Town. I know I was talking to Big E, our assistant program director. He's like, Sam's Town, is that a reference to Sam from Walmart? What is Sam's Town?
Well, it's not about Sam Walton. It could be taken many different ways. I'd like to leave it a little bit more open for whatever people want to think, but it could be Uncle Sam. It could be Sam Boyd, which is another name for Las Vegas. Could be Sam's Town. You could look at it that way.
And the Killers are, as you mentioned, from Las Vegas, and you recorded this album at the studio at the Palms. Now, is that a studio inside a casino?
Yeah, it's in the casino. It's in the new Fantasy Tower, and it's it was the best studio in town, so it made sense. We just wanted to be home.
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of big bands will go to New York or Los Angeles or somewhere else, but you guys tried to keep it at home, so that's a cool thing. So one might think that could lead to a very long and drawn out, even decadent recording experience. I mean, you're in a casino after all.
Well, if you live in Vegas, you learn to tune that stuff out. Otherwise, you got to move. I mean, you can't get sucked into the gambling and the strip clubs and stuff like that, or you'll end up in a bad place.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you about that. Life in Las Vegas, I've been a few times, and actually one of the best times I ever had in Vegas was, not in the casinos and the clubs. It was sort of away from the casinos in the suburbs. And, just hanging out with friends. So were you born there? Have you lived there most of your life?
No, everybody else grew up there. I moved there 7 years ago from Iowa.
Oh, okay.
It was just one of those things, I was just kind of bored with my life. I didn't know what to do, and I thought, well, I'll just move to Vegas. It seems interesting and fun, even if, I'm just there a few months. And then I ended up staying a year and, a year and a half after being there. I met Brandon after trying to put together a few other bands that didn't work out, and then, we started writing together, and the rest is.
And this is the second full length from the band, and producing this with you guys, some veteran guys like Flood, who's worked with you too, also Alan Moulder, who's worked with 9 Inch Nails, among many others. Was it good working with these guys on this album?
Yeah, they're both good. They both worked together on a few different projects, and Moulder mixed a lot of our first records, so we already knew him, and they just seemed like a good pair. We met with them in London about a year before we started recording, and we talked to a few other producers too, and it just felt right with Flood and Allen, and I think we're happy we picked them.
And I hope you don't mind me saying, but you are really not recognized enough for your guitar playing. I mean, your style, and I don't know who you listened to growing up, sometimes reminds me a little bit of The Edge, maybe even Keith Richards to some degree, because you play all of these cool little riffs running throughout all of the Killer songs, I've noticed, even on the first album.
Oh, well, thanks for saying that. Yeah, I mean, I love The Edge, and I do like Keith Richards. He was one of the first, Brown Sugar is one of the first songs I was trying to learn. And also like, Billy Corgan and Jimi Hendrix and a variety of stuff.
How about your songwriting? Does it usually start with a riff from you? Does Brandon give you lyrics or music? How does that what's that process normally like?
Everybody asks that question. There's no set answer, and everybody has their own theory. Oh, this guy must be the genius behind it or whatever, but it really is, every song is a different approach, and we collaborate with each other, and just, It might be. Sometimes we try and plan it out, like, oh, Brandon has this idea on keyboard, and then we, start putting down bass and guitar, and then if it needs a bridge or something, I'll take a stab at it or whatever. But it just depends on the song. You usually write the music first and the lyrics last.
And that song we just played, When You Were Young, it really starts out with this big sort of almost metal-like riff from you. You know what I'm saying? And then it goes...
When You Were Young?
Yeah.
Funny. Yeah, I guess it sort of is.
We'll talk about this song on the album I want to play right now called Read My Mind.
It's my favorite one, actually, off the album. And it has a little bit of an interesting story. We were in the studio. It was there was another song. We came in. It was like kind of at the bottom of the list in terms of like how much we liked it, and we were about ready to throw it away. It was called Little Angela, and we worked on it. I didn't really like it at all. I was like ready to throw it away, and then said, no, let's just keep working on this. And then we tried doing it a little bit softer than, a softer approach to that song. And rearranged a little bit, and then by the end of the day, it was a completely different song, kind of the same music, but it, you wouldn't know it, and became Read My Mind, and it was one of my favorites. And so it's weird, Yeah,
it's got that sort of big, almost, you got that big chorus, that big sort of anthemic sort of sound to it, which is really cool.
Yeah.
This is Jonathan Clarke live on the phone with the Killers' lead guitar player, David Keuning. And Dave, I do not necessarily hear the influence of this particular band in your music. You were talking about this before, but I did read somewhere that you and Brandon, the lead singer from the band, actually got together, or one of the reasons you got together musically was because of a sort of shared respect for the music of Oasis, one of my favorite bands.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about that. It's I put a few different bands out in the ad, and Oasis stuck out because Brandon had just heard Oasis, and he was into mostly keyboard bands back then. That was about 5 or 6 years ago now. And I put, a guitar player looking to start something, basically, and Oasis, I'm glad I put Oasis in there because it stuck out to Brandon, and he called. And since then, I think we've both changed, and I had no idea what direction we were going to go, after we met, but...
Well, I do hear influences from The Cure, The Smiths, U2 perhaps too. Were these some of the bands that you and Brandon and the other guys sort of were influenced by as you were growing up?
Yeah, I mean, we were all a little bit more so than others. I've always liked New Order and The Cure, and I know Brandon liked New Order and the Smiths. So we had enough common interest between the four of us that in Vegas it's hard to find people even. It's actually kind of hard to find people who like Oasis or The Cure or the Smiths. There's not that many musicians that do. So we kind of found each other, and I kind of not surprised that we eventually found each other.
Well, the band is on tour now, coming to do 2 shows in New York City this coming Tuesday and Wednesday night at the theater at Madison Square Garden. How about New York City for you, David? You like hanging out in the city? Do you like playing here? Are the fans different when you play here?
It's great. Everybody loves New York, I think. But, I love it. Good fans. It's a cool town. There's always, something to do, and really spend a few extra days there.
And the new single from the album is a track called Bones. And I got to ask what it was like having the video for this song directed by this amazing director, Tim Burton.
Yeah, that was a weird thing. We were talking in the studio, and I remember Brandon saying, "Wouldn't it be cool if we got Tim Burton?" But in a not so serious way, like
just sort of throwing it out there.
Yeah, whatever. I kind of threw out George Lucas. Why don't we get him?
Steven Spielberg.
Like, who do you think you are? And but after talking about it, we're just call. It doesn't hurt. And the worst thing they'll say is no. And he said yes. So much to our surprise, we were all happy about that.
Did it take like a couple days, or was it just like one day, or over the course of a week, or?
It took about a week.
Yeah.
But we sent him the song, and he heard it and got back to us. And we were actually in London finishing the record, and he unexpectedly just showed up at the studio one day.
Oh, wow.
It was weird. And, Brandon was on the phone, and he didn't want me to bother him. So I wrote on a piece of paper, I said, Tim Burton is upstairs, and then he got off the phone.
Wow, yeah, you get off the phone for Tim Burton, I'd say. The new album from The Killers is called Sam's Town. For more info, go to The Killers